Here, so we can start. Uh, so let me share the screen. Okay. So if there is any issue, just unmute yourself and please let me know. Still, there is a problem with my video. See, understand, I am running one Microsoft software on a Microsoft Windows, so it's a double whammy. Okay, so that's a big problem. Everything else is fine. So, hello. Yes. Yes. Someone needs to say something. No? Okay. Yeah. So point is this is a double whammy. And that's why I'm still unable to use video. So probably next time I will uninstall MS Team and try to reinstall it and all that. Otherwise, everything is perfect. So I think we talked last time that solar power is too good, renewables are too good, and even we thought that we'll make it so cheaper that even all other say coal or any thermal or any classic sources which will be costlier. And yes, we have achieved the grid parity. Technical term is grid parity. But the question is that two questions rather: how we have achieved it? That is the first point. And second point is if everything is too good, then why we just cannot go for installing just the solar everywhere? Okay, so where is the bottleneck? Where is the problem? And also, as I've said, it is all about physics, economics, and the engineering part. So where is the problem? Where still we cannot we cannot go further low, or can we? Or if at all, if it's possible, how exactly we can go low as far as prices are concerned? So let us start with something called as typical solar power plant. This is given by CERC, so Central Energy Regulatory Commission. See, we have got so many bodies. As an electrical engineer, you should know what are the different agencies which are set up by the government for benefit of the electrical sectors. And these agencies have come after the Electricity Act 2005. We will talk about that at the end of this lecture, and also about more agencies. So anyway, CERC is one of the agency which gives the guidelines for setting up the power plants, and it is executed through Solar Energy Council of India, SESI, a Corporation of India, SESI. So you can see that if you read any news, you will always see that SESI is floating a tender and somebody grabbed it, and so on. So these figures are a bit old, but in percentages still they are good. So I'm showing you, of course, this breakup of capital cost is given for each and every what you call it as each and every state, because the prices will be different. Okay, so let me tell you. So you can see particulars, obviously modules, then land cost, civil structures, then your electrical part, cables, power conditioning units, then transformer and other things. Then connectivity. So if you're connecting it to a 33 kV or 11 kV grids or whatever, and then obviously some administrative expenses are also taken into account. So you can check the last column. Just for comparison, I have given the Karnataka and Rajasthan because last time I told you that these two are the leading states as far as the installations are concerned. These are the states which have led the policies before all other states, and that's why kind of benchmark you can say. So general cost, if you see, this is the biggest problem. We think that we require land or other things. No. So this is a cost per megawatt. Of course, these costs are now decreased a lot, but roughly, if we try to take the percentage, the solar PV modules, whichever technology you take, we'll talk about the technologies later, you will see that the major chunk of this capital cost is coming because of this solar PV modules. So when we talk about the electricity cost, obviously it depends on the capital cost, and if capital cost is more, obviously the electricity cost will be more. So now here you can understand two basic things. If we want the per unit cost to be lower, either we should decrease the capital cost, or we should increase the efficiency with which the PV modules are operating. So first depends on the second, and second depends on first, and both depends on the policy. That is why I said physics, engineering, and economics, both are all three are rather going to work together. So if you convert it into this percentage, then almost about 50 to 60%, somewhere in between, are the PV modules cost. So now this module obviously is comprising of the cells, and again you will find out that the cell will be the most costly thing. So we can break up that further as well. So this is a paper I given. I'll give this reference to this in my last slide. So this is a bit old paper, but again, moreover, the things for to understand the idea, you will see that still it holds good. So whenever we say module is made up of cells, and this cell is the end product, or you can say a device, and which is made from the material, which we call it as wafer. Okay, so silicon, if it is a material, we call it as silicon wafer. So first you have to make silicon. From that silicon, you have to make the wafer. On that wafer, you will do some semiconductor processing, and you will get the cell. And when you assemble these cells into some series parallel connections, and you will give a rigid frame to it, and you will make a complete package, then you will see that it is made up. It makes a module. Okay, so this is what we give it to the power plants. And that's why whenever we say that the production of the panel, it is also given in megawatt. Production of the cell, it is also given in megawatt. Production of wafer is also given in this megawatt. And if you produce the electricity, that is also given in megawatt. So these two are the different things. One where you create the hardware, and one where you create the power. Both the units are same. Anyway, so obviously these prices, as I've said, is going down. So whatever the recent prices, I said that from roughly from 5 to 2.5. Why it went down? Because if we concentrate that 60% of the cost is module cost, if we can decrease that by two things. One, you can decrease the material cost, because that is another important point. And if you can increase the efficiency of the device itself, which is a semiconductor device. So that's why you can see the things are going down. And there are several factors, not only these two. There are several factors which ultimately will give you the cost per unit cost. Okay, so this we can find out. So how this cost is sensitive to particular module cost components. So you can see here list of about 12 module cost components which are significant. And efficiency, obviously, as soon as you increase the efficiency, module cost is going to go down. Okay, so but then there are many other factors which are not that sensitive. I mean, even if you do something with that, the cost is not going to go down. And that is what I said. Even you work on power electronics, nothing really is going to affect the cost of the electricity. But if you have got if you work on solar panels or solar cell, definitely you will be working something good for decreasing the cost of electricity. If you are using storage, and if you work on battery efficiencies and cost of battery, definitely you are going to decrease the levelized cost of electricity. How to calculate that we'll see later. So now you will see major two factors which are really creating issue here is the efficiency, as I've said, and second thing is the silicon feedstock. Silicon feedstock is the material in a simple sense. It can be reused material, or it can be a raw material which is purified. And you can also see there is third factor, which is depreciation. Now this depreciation, of course, this is related to taxes, and now that goes under the policy. So if we can think of the policy, the technology which is going to control the efficiency, and of course silicon production will remain more or same, but if we can decrease the material cost, so instead of using, let us say, 100 gram of silicon, if we use say 80 gram of silicon, we are saving on material. So these three aspects, that is what we are going to learn. So if you probably know Moore's law, so it says that every I think 1.5 year the frequency doubles for the semiconductor processors, right? So here we have got Swanson's law, that is about the price of the PV modules. So it says that there will be drop of 20% every doubling of cumulative shipped volume. So now that is again, kind of that is the fundamental of fabric this production. That if there is more demand, obviously the cost per production cost goes down, because probably with the same capital cost you are now producing more. So that's why this cost goes down, and that is what exactly has happened. And as I've said, before 80s, mostly the solar cells were used in space. Okay, so in space, cost is not a problem. The size, the weight, that is what the real problem is, and they have to keep it low. So gallium arsenide thin film solar cells were the and some other technologies were used. So when we are talking about the terrestrial cells, it means what we are using on the earth. I mean. Then silicon was the major thing, and you can see the trend. The price has gone absolutely down from about $76 to $0.3. But then how this has gone down? As I've said, one thing, the material itself, that is one of the factor. So here the graph is of wafer thickness versus the year, and in recent, I mean, previously, before 90s, nobody was even bothered about that. Okay, just the basic device itself was getting matured. But as the saturation happened, people thought of looking at some different ways to curb the cost, and wafer thickness was one of the major criteria. So you can see in 1990s, wafer thickness was 400 micrometer, and that it has gone down almost to 150, 175 micrometers. So that has decreased cost a lot, almost it has half. Okay, there is one more parameter nowadays coming into picture, a very recent trend. It is the size of the wafer itself. I mean, the area. Normally, these, of course, we'll learn about that later, but normally, you will see that if a processor is made, your computer processor is made, say Intel processor, normally they use 10-inch wafers. Okay, nowadays they are going for a 12-inch wafer. Also the what you call line thickness, or the distance between the two lines, that is also now decreased. You can nowadays in mobile you are seeing that 10 nanometer processor. So that is what the thickness we are talking of. So that all are going down. However, the in solar industry earlier we used to have only 4-inch wafers. Now if you see, the latest panel is now using 6-inch wafers, or some are even trying 8-inch wafers. Okay, because what is the difference between microprocessor and this company? Because here you want a large area deposition. In processor, there is no that much of large area deposition. That's why you can go for a larger wafer size over there. And there is a very tricky thing. There is very interesting thing. Perhaps you are more keen about the selection of processor in your computer, and you will see that the same processor i7, but you will find out that there are 4 or 5 variations. i5, there will be 4 or 5 variations. Cache is different. Okay, some prices are lower. Now, why that prices is lower? Just to quote, one of the reason is that not all processors manufactured are good. Okay, so they cannot throw it away. They cannot reuse it. So what they do is, if a particular processor, all the what you say internal devices are working, let us say all all transistors, whatever inside are, if they are working, obviously the processor is faster, so that will be sold at higher cost. But if there is some damage, internal damage, you cannot even detect it. So obviously it will be running at slower speeds with lower competitions in the sense. So that will be sold at the lower prices. That's why you get the price difference. That is the fundamental reason of the difference in the prices. So basically, when you are going for the cheap processor with the same configurations on paper, basically you are going for a defective what you say device. Anyway, so of course that is how 100% utilization is done. The point is wafer thickness. So what has happened because of this, and obviously the efficiency and the demand, all these things, the PV module prices also has gone down as the cumulative capacity also has increased. And you will notice that moreover it's a straight line on a log scale. However, there is a one small hump where the crystalline silicon price increased. So demand and supply, that is playing a role here. If the demand is higher and the supply is lower, obviously the prices are going to go up, and that is what happened exactly somewhere in 2006, 2007. So this is because polysilicon was shortage of polysilicon. So you make crystalline silicon out of that. Crystalline silicon is a pure silicon. We'll talk about that later. Now, what happens? So suddenly prices are up, but that is what the technology we were looking for, and that led to the second generation and the third generation technologies. That we will talk about later. So first generation technology was mature, people started looking for something else, and that's where thin film, which is a second generation, and the nano material, that is the third generation, is formed. Now you will realize that the silicon is not only used in your semiconductor industries, it is used in other industries as well. So you can see here aluminum alloys requires silicon a lot. Second biggest industry is solar, but semiconductor industry is just 3%. But what's happened is, see, on a 4-inch wafer we make only one solar cell. On 4-inch wafer, probably semiconductor industry will make hundreds of devices. So that's the problem. Miniaturization is the problem. So again, the silane is a gas. It's very toxic gas. It is used in industry for some purifications, and then there are some small other matters. So you will see in 2008, rather before that, the thin film technology started taking shape. People researched in that, and that is the second generation cell, and that was the best invention awarded by the Time magazine in 2008. So the need is what driving the research and development. So now other thing is, see, people are too smart in the research, and they are trying to find out the ways, and there are so many ways. There is not only one way in research, and that is the best part of it. So what happens is, silicon, you get it in raw, and then you will see that on the top there is this metallurgical grade. So this is what is used for making the alloys. So it is just purified somewhere around 99 point two nines. Okay, and then normally, as I've said, the semiconductor industry was mature before the solar cell, and semiconductor industry, that is for your processors, RAM, and everything. People were using electronic grade, and that is 99.99 is the purity. Okay, so one bad silicon atom per billion. So that is what purity we are talking of. Of course, we need a detector grade silicon. This is normally used in microscopes or such a sensitive instruments. So the point is, earlier this was the grade of silicon even used for solar. So obviously, when we are purifying more, the cost goes up. And for solar cell, it was not at all needed that we should attain such a high purity. So people started looking, can we compromise with this? So such that if we decrease the degree of purification, we will save the money in purification, and that will decrease the cost. However, the catch was, the compromise was, when we are decreasing the purification, it means it has got more impurity in it. However, we will control the impurity at such an instant, in such a level, and we will control the type of impurity which will what you say kind of compromise, or if a particular impurity is present in the solar grade silicon, it will not affect the performance of that. Okay, so this is the compromise that was made, which further decrease the cost. Okay, so material efficiency, these are the important points. So what about the efficiency, or what are the other ways where this also can be improved for first generation? Still we haven't started with the second generation. So as I've said, we purify silicon and we make the ingots. It means the cylinder is cut into wafers. So when you are cutting the wafers, definitely it's very difficult. We are talking of 150 micron. To just give a parallel example, literally I can give the example of wafers. Have you ever tried what you call chopping the wafers? Anybody? Meanwhile, I'll download the attendance list. Yeah, anybody? Have you chopped the potato for wafers?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, fine. Who is this?
Nadeem Hussain.
Nadeem Hussain. This is your first class, I suppose.
Yes, sir. My registration was not completed yet.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
So, what have you tried, and what was the difficulty? What was the problem?
Sir, we just have to boil, then after we have to peel, and after then chop.
No, my dear friend, I'm talking about wafers. You should improve your cooking skills. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, anyway, when you chop the wafers, what happens is, first problem is you want the uniform thickness, but it will never happen. Okay. You will see that on the sides, you will have the larger thickness, and in the middle, probably the thin part. And also, then the yield, the area will decrease as you go on peeling, and that will create a problem. So improved wire sawing, kerfless wafering, these are the techniques we can look for, where we we use a proper technique. So this wastage of the wafers goes down. And also when you are cutting, here I will give the example of the saw in your what you call the workshop. If you have cut the metal with the saw, you will see that there is a lot of dust of the metal which you are cutting, and it depends on what is the thickness of the hacksaw blade that you are using. So when you are trying to cut the silicon, such a things happens, and about 30 to 40% is the wastage. So can we improve that? Can we reuse the powder that is considered as a wastage, so that we can decrease the silicon usage? Another thing is certain new structures are involved. We will talk about the structure later. Just I'll give you the introduction here. Heat cell, back contact cell. Nowadays there are TOPCon cells. So these are variety of cell structures which are available, where the latest efficiency reported are around 24 to 26%. So every company is coming with their own research and development, and they announce their panel with a certain efficiency. Then we can go for defect engineering, as I have talked about the purity of the silicon. We can do certain material, what you say, metallurgical techniques or post-processing of the material, which is called as gettering. So gettering is heating the material at about 900 degrees Celsius or something. And then passivation. We don't want silicon to get bonded, especially with the oxygen. So we can put some hydrogen on it. So this is how we manage the defects in the material. Surface engineering, passivation is one of that. Also, we can go for advanced light management. See, some of the cells are, some of the terrestrial cell uses what you say concentrated solar light. I think you all have done that. Experiment where you concentrate the light and you burn the paper. Okay, so same thing over here. You concentrate the light and you use a very highly efficient cell. However, the cell cost is too large, So that's why you have to decrease the material cost, and that's why the area is small. So anyway, when you are focusing, you require a small area, you don't require a large area. And other part, the whole semiconductor industry is doing that, you have to go for enhanced automation. For example, if there is a processor manufacturing, it's almost 100% automated industry. Okay, so similarly, you can decrease the labor, you can go for lesser capital cost, and so that the yield of the, as I said, for processors, the yield should be higher. Same here, we can talk about yield of wafer, cell, module, whatever. So this, if yield is higher, your recycling cost is lower, and you get what you call the better output from this. So we can use this and improve the efficiency, wafer manufacturing and everything. And if we implement the advanced concepts, as I've said, the different structures, then ultimately the of course this was predicted in 2012, and literally based on that prediction, we have achieved a far lesser cost for this model manufacturing. Okay, so first generation, what are the key takeaway points? 1963 commercial module of this crystalline silicon started by the Sharp Corporation. 87% of the technologies, even still today, is dominated by this first generation solar cells. Commercially, if you purchase the module, the efficiencies are 14 to 19%. But nowadays, at a bit higher cost, you can get 21 about to 25% module as well. So that depends on the price. It's now absolutely a mature technology, and the disadvantage of mature technology is, if you have to really improve the efficiency of the first generation solar cell, it is very difficult. Even if a company after so much of R&D can achieve 0.1%, it's a huge leap over there. So there is a less chance for cost cutting and increasing the efficiency. So that's why people are going for the second and the third generation over here. So the challenges are, first of all, high cost per unit watt, that is a per unit cost. So high cost of material is driving it. Efficiencies are still moderate. 22% is not great efficiencies. Availability of material. So if something happens to the supply chain management, I think we talked about that share prices, right? So if the Europe stops the silicon supply to China, think that because of this particular Cold War which is going on, China whole semiconductor production will go down. Absolutely, the prices will shoot up because there is no any other manufacturer. So that's why we require a vertical integration. Means that a single company should produce the silicon, the wafer, the process, the processors or the devices in this case, or cells, and also the modules, and it should go for the installation. So this, if a single company does that, that is called as the vertical integration. Reliance is kind of doing that vertical integration. That's why you can see that just today's news, Ambani is the fourth richest now, Okay, we were always talking about Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Now he's the fourth richest. Anyway, and by the way, I talked about that share, right? Adani Green. In just 2 days after our lecture, it has increased by 15%. Just for information. So other thing is, whenever these high cost and moderate efficiencies, ultimately it is going to have long energy payback period. What is that? Simply, when you make a module to produce the energy, we put some energy into it. Okay, so if that input energy for production is high, obviously to retrieve that energy or to produce that much of energy, the period required is higher, and that is called as a payback period. Normally this payback period is utilized with respect to the money invested and the returns. We'll talk about that in economics later. So if energy payback is larger, then absolutely money payback period will be also larger. So next, people went for thin film technologies. So 150 micrometer was still too thick. Okay, so people thought of something different, and that's why people came into variety of materials which can be deposited. See, now here is the transformation of technology itself. As this particular subject is related to only silicon PV technologies, essentially is the first generation technologies. So this particular part I'm just going for introduction. We will not deal with this particular part anywhere later, but there is something interesting going on over here. So when we talk of thin film, if we find difficulty in cutting a 150 micrometer thin wafer, think of a 10 micrometer film or 2 micrometer film. It will be absolutely difficult. Okay, so that's why the technology is absolutely different. Instead of going from top to bottom, top down approach, that is cutting the wafer, we are building the wafer by deposition technique. So if you go on depositing, you will find out a deposition of thin film on a substrate. Okay, substrate is the base what we use. In that, amorphous silicon was one of the leading one. What are the advantages? It is a direct band gap material. Band gap can be tuned depending upon the size of the particle itself, and we can have various deposition techniques which are governed by the chemical vapor depositions. Normally these are the varieties of that. However, the problem is that as the material is amorphous and we are putting it into the sunlight for so long, there is a degradation because of this light which is falling on it, and that's why initial efficiency goes on decreasing, but however it settles down after 3-4% of loss. A parallel example I can think of is, I'm very sure your mother, if she is putting your new clothes outside in the sunlight, she will take it inside out, and then she will put it. Why? Because she knows that under that sunlight the color may fade up, and it would be better if it doesn't fade outside. So that's a similar thing is happening over here. So the point here is you can go for thin films. However, amorphous silicon is quite made up of defects, and the problem is then the good light trapping. So here you can use, instead of PN structure, diode. Diode is a PN device. The diode and solar cell are absolutely the same. However, the optimization is different. In diode you require for what you call rectification, but here we need the power production. Okay, so accordingly, and power production means you require more light. That's why the area is more. Diode area is very small. So optimization is the basic change. But then in this structure, you can go for PIN structure. I is the intrinsic layer, which is good for light trapping. You can go for tandem cells. As I've said, the band gap is tunable. We can use multiple band gaps, and we can go for 2 or 3 cells. How exactly, we will discuss that later. Then we have got some other compounds, as I've said, CDT, cadmium telluride, CIGS. These are all direct band gap material. Direct band gap is always better because it gives higher efficiency. Silicon is indirect band gap. How exactly it affects, we will see in our semiconductor part. Now, as far as these materials are concerned, first of all, they are costly. Material availability is a big problem, and in case of cadmium, it is toxic material, so that's why these are not used. However, their efficiencies are too good, so that's a compromise we have to make. Then people thought of crystalline, however, with certain jugaad in the crystalline, you can go for, instead of having a large grain size, one can go for small grain size. Still you are using silicon, which is abundant, non-toxic, and we have the experience from the microelectronic industry. Stability is also good, so people are trying all this. However, there are so if we try to take the pros and cons, you will see that we have decreased the material. Definitely, amorphous silicon is roughly around 10 micrometer or less. So that's why we use deposition techniques, which are very low energy consumption. At just 400 degrees Celsius, you can do this deposition. Whereas for silicon purification and wafer making, you require about 1500 degrees Celsius or so. So you huge saving on the energy. Interestingly, as it is a 10 micrometer thin, that's why it is a very flexible, and when it is flexible, the application becomes anywhere. It is not restricted. Module is if you take crystalline module, it cannot be, you cannot bend it, you cannot put it anywhere in any shape, but here it is possible. As the material is decreased and we don't require that huge frame and all that, it becomes a lightweight structure, and that's why we talked about building integrated PV. So it becomes useful for that, and overall the cost is down. However, the problem, although we have decreased the cost, efficiency is a problem. It is even lower than 10%. Capital cost, because it's a new technology, so all this deposition machinery requires high capital cost. It's a very complex technology. Initial degradation is there. We use gases like silane gas for deposition, and these are explosives and toxic gases. Now, as far as this thin film is concerned, I will give you another example. Anybody purchased flat TV recently? Anyone? Hello? Yeah, I'm taking the attendance. Niharika Dalai, absent. Swagatika,
Yes,
absent. Swagatika.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nikhil, Deepankar,
Yes, sir.
Amresh, Aishwarya Roy,
Present, sir.
Snehashish,
Yes, sir.
Aman, Thubukunta Vidya. Okay. So remember, folks, I mean, if you feel that you are smart, I'm smarter than you. Okay, that's why I'm sitting here. So I can take such attendance anytime I wish. And if you are absent, you are absent. Okay. Merely logging in and keeping the screen on so that you will see that your attendance is marked or something like that. Don't fool. You are fooling yourself. Fine. So next time I will take the attendance randomly. And someone is recording. I think this recording is going online. So you think that you can see it later and you can hear it. That's fine. That is a good advantage of being these online classes. But the problem is, don't think that you can fool me. Okay. So please be careful. If I can. You know how it works. If I take attendance offline, I mean in our classes physically properly, I can take that here as well. Okay. I have certain tricks in my bags, and I can pull them out. I'll share a story here. Okay. There was a king, and he told his prince. He sent his prince to a guru. Okay, so that he can learn all these battle fights and other administration things and other vidyas and whatnot. Okay. So later that prince was too good in grasping, and that prince become a prince. Grew older. Then he learned everything. He was master at everything. And then the king died. So obviously the prince become the king. And then it was like that new king was overconfident kind of, and he said that now see I have learned everything, and nobody can beat me, and I am now also the king. Okay. So then what happens is, because of this overconfidence, he challenges his guru itself. Okay. Guru says that, see, fine, that's great. If you win, yes, that's good for me as a guru. If you lose, still it is good for me because I won. So it's a two-sided sword. So it's good for me. Okay. But the point was, king had all the spies with him. So that's why king started spying on the guru. And spy in a few days brought the news that the Guru is making a 15 feet long sword, 15 feet long sword. Okay, fine. Then king ordered, we will make 20 feet long sword, and he managed to get the best sword made. Okay, fine. The day arrived, the battle was about to start. The referee blew the whistle, and as soon as the battle started, Guru pulled out a small sword of 2 feet or something, and immediately put it on the neck of the king. The sword case was 15 feet long. However, the actual sword inside was 2 feet only. Now, what happened with the king? King was unable to pull out his 20 feet sword from whatever is package, and ultimately, obviously, he lost. So the conclusion of this is Guru is always 2 feet or 2 steps ahead of what you are doing. Okay, so if you want to beat me, I will be happy and I will appreciate it. But then you have to work hard. That's the whole point. Okay, fine. So let me go back. We still have about 20 minutes, and so what? Yeah. So this is the. I think you can see the screen, right? Anybody? You can see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fantastic,
Yes, sir.
fantastic. Okay, so yeah, so what I was telling, what was the question? Has anybody brought the TV recently, or at least research on the net? The Amazon and Flipkart sale is going on, na? You can see that anyway. If you haven't, then let me tell you. Earlier, 22-inch TV was a big thing. Probably you were 10, 12 or something of that age, right? Nowadays, if you see the advertisement, 43-inch is a very common. And what is the cost? Somewhere 20,000 or something. So even 65-inch, today only TCL launched it. It is just 64,000. And you will see that most of the 43-inch TVs and bit earlier TVs were LED TVs. Nowadays, the TVs will be QLED. That is either QLED or OLED. QLED stands for quantum LED, where quantum dot technology is used, so you get a better picture. Or OLED, that is organic LED LEDs. So OLED is the technique by Samsung, and QLED is by Sony. Now, the point what I'm making here is that how come this size of the panel is going larger from 22 inch to now 65? Even now, let me tell you, in 2 or 3 years, 75-inch or 99-inch will become a common common number for this. Why? Because of these second generation technologies which are based on deposition. It means what? When you are depositing, the point is area. So if you can do the uniform deposition all over the area, then great, the devices will work. You know that LED is basically a diode, small diodes. Okay, so if you can do it on larger area, then your TV or such a devices will work, right? And the same thing is happening with the amorphous silicon technologies as well. We can go for, instead of having 10-inch or 12-inch wafer, you can literally go for a large, up to a 1 meter by 1 meter panel or something like that. So it is equivalent to your TV. So instead of making TV, you make solar cell. The technology is absolutely the same. Okay, so that's why you get 75-inch TVs and all that, and their cost has gone down like anything. Okay, so this is all was possible because of the thin film technologies. It worked with the TVs. However, it could not work with the solar PV because that the efficiency was lower in this case, less than 10%. So it could not drive the what you call it as prices down. Okay. So another thing is, so these are the technologies which are compared. I told you typically this wafer cell model, it has got particular cost, and you can check over here that wafer technology is wafer will have more cost in crystalline, but all other technologies barring the first one are the what you call second generation or third generation technologies or thin film technologies, and it has got lower efficiencies. However, the wafer cost has gone down significantly. It is a percentage cost, so obviously the costs are actual costs are different. So if we see still in the global market, the market share is still dominated by the silicon, mono and multi. We will talk about that later. But the point is, so you can club them together. So mono, multi is absolutely great. As I've said, somewhere down, in 2000 or something, the thin film was dominating, but then later people realized that no, nothing is working. So still this silicon technologies are crystalline silicon are dominating. So mono plus multi, I can call it as a crystalline silicon. So in 2014, roughly about 91%, and still it is more over the same percentage is same. So what we can do to save further? Okay, so second generation is not possible. So still there is a high cost due to the large material, that too of a high purity, large volume. So we decrease the thickness, still not possible. We use the concentrators, as I've said, concentrators on a high efficiency solar cells, so that decrease the cost, but not too much. So the third generation technology was to use the nanostructures of any material, but nanostructures of silicon that I am going to talk about. So these basically are the new things, and then people predicted what has to be done so that really we can achieve this grid parity as far as the new generation is concerned. So you can see the three generations over here, 1, 2, 3, and first generation, it has high cost, good efficiency, somewhere around up to of course this has got all the structures, not only single junction, triple junction, and different technologies were there. So it has got about 20 to 30%. Okay, now there this graph is very interesting. This is given by that Martin Green. You can see single band gap limit. It means what? We are using a single PN junction solar cell. It has got about 31% as a limit for silicon. That is called as the Shockley Quasar limit. And if we do the thermodynamic analysis, this is from our first principles of thermodynamics. It comes around 80%. So what can be done? We have to go for multiple junctions. Single junction is quite lower. This is the first one. So it has got good efficiency but higher cost. So second generation, that was thin film, definitely it decreased the cost, but efficiency were also low. So the third generation, so third one, what we are targeting is we should have lower cost. However, the efficiency should be higher, and importantly, we should overcome the Shockley Quasar limit with using certain technologies. Okay. So for that, we should understand the losses in standard solar cell. We'll talk about these slides in much detail when we talk about the semiconductor. I'm just giving you introduction so that whatever the next slides I'm going to talk about, you can understand. So this is a typical band gap diagram, and you see that light falls on this semiconductor, and it contains photons, and photons has got energy. So if that photon energy is less than the band gap of, let us say, silicon band gap is 1.1. So if it is, let us say, 0.6, it is not at all going to absorb. So that photon is a wastage. If the energy is higher, let us say 1.5 or something, whatever that extra energy, 0.4 electron volt, that cannot be converted. It is only dissipated in the heat, and we call it as the thermalization losses or thermal losses. So that is also a loss. Okay. So then there are some losses like inherent losses. We need a contact so that the current can flow. So these are the junction contact losses. Then this is a material, it will inherently have some defects. So these are called as the recombination losses. So these are certain losses coming into the devices. So we have to work now on the physics side, or we have to change the structure so that we can utilize the physics behind it, so that we can decrease these kind of losses. So the third generation, basically for targeting for higher efficiencies, they thought of certain simple ideas. So the first thing is use of complete spectrum. Till this point, you can use photons only above 1.1, let us say for silicon. So can we use the lower photons? Can we utilize that extra energy carried by that high energy photons? So that is the use of complete photon. We can use better materials. So gallium arsenide or CDT, all are thin film. However, they were toxic. So can we use the technology for silicon, or can we come up with certain different new material? Nowadays, perovskite, it's absolutely a chemical compound. These are one of the largely researched solar cells. So can we use better materials which are not toxic, but however abundant, because again, that supply demand should not be a problem. But as I've said, when we moved to second generation methods, the capital cost was higher because all the production machinery itself was higher, and the capital cost was higher. So can we use still the second generation methods to achieve or to fabricate the third generation? Can we achieve high quality and low defect? As I was talking about the large thin film deposition, can it be done without those defects and large scale? That is what I'm talking about. So if we go larger and larger in size, definitely the cost will go down, and see, the installation cost will also go down, because now see, if we want 1 kilowatt and we are having a 40-watt panel, we require 25 panels. But if we now can produce a 500-watt single panel, we require only 2 panels. So it is easy for handling, easy for installation for the power production purpose. So this is what are the ideas, and people are working in various ways. There is no, again, a single way so that we can encompass all these things, but people are trying. So let us start with understanding a bit about this. So this is what I was talking about. Silicon is here, 1.1. Okay, so whatever the photons which are coming from here are of the useful energy, but extra energy is going to go into the thermalization losses. This side, these are non-absorbed photons, so whatever this is absolutely going through. Okay, so can we convert? Can we shift this over here, and why can we shift this over here? Okay, these photons can be converted. So this is called as up conversion, and it is called as a down conversion. So can we work on that? That is the possibility, and we can use the complete spectrum so that a complete utilization of the resources is possible. So what are the approaches? A variety of approaches are there. I can say a few. One is the band gap matching. So silicon has got a single band gap, 1.1 electron volt. So now can we have multiple cells? Like if there are 2 cells, we call it as tandem. If there are 3 or 4, we call it as a multi-junction solar cell. So instead of having a single PN junction, can we have multiple PN junction? However, here the difference will be either you can have different materials where the band gap will be different, or you can have same material but you are tuning the band gap. For example, silicon and amorphous silicon, so material is same but the band gaps are different. Then next is to reduce the thermalization losses, can we use hot electron cells or heat cells, it is called as. And as I've said, reshaping the solar spectrum itself. We will not change the cell, rather we will change the input itself. Okay, so that is called as up and down conversion. So either we can use certain materials which can do this up down conversion. So this is one of the example of multi-junction solar cell. So you can see here, bottom cell germanium 0.65, middle cell is InGaAs, indium gallium arsenide, and top cell is 1.86 InGaP solar cell. So you can see the structure is more over the same. The difference is the material itself. Okay, and then if you see that the light is coming from the top, what will happen is, as this is 1.86, this will be absorbed at the top layer. Then the rest of the photons will pass because they cannot get absorbed. Whatever is the below this 1.86, they cannot be absorbed, so they will pass further. They will come here in the second cell, and at second cell, in between this 1.4 to 1.86, the absorption will take place. Rest of these below 1.4, they are still they see the material as transparent material. They go down, and at bottom cell this everything will be absorbed. So now 3 cells are working together, and they are absorbing now the complete spectrum. But where is the problem? First of all, the cost is going to go up. Okay. However, such a cells are used, as I've said, in the concentrated photovoltaic cells, so that you don't require a large area cell, a small area cell, so your material cost is lower, and then you can put some concentrators, so you do not waste the light. You are concentrating the light at a very small thing. So how many such junctions we can make? As I've said, let us say unconcentrated light, single junction, the Shockley phasor limit is 31. But if we go for a second, third generation, then definitely the efficiency is increasing. But then there is a limit. We can, even if we go infinite, the efficiency is not going to go, more than double. So now we have to think of the economics over here. So normally people go for 2 or 3 and achieving 48%. But as I've said, if we concentrate the light on the same cell, we can achieve, additional about 15% of the efficiency. So concentrators are also coming. We call it as Fresnel lens. These Fresnel lens are used for concentrating the light, so that you can get more efficiency. So you can see that 1 cell is a problem because of the underutilization. 4 cell is a problem because economics doesn't permit us, and even in a way the physics is restricting it. Okay, so this is how where the optimization comes into picture, and engineering is the major one. And that is how I define, difference between science and engineering. Science is theoretically you can do so many things, but when it comes to engineering, that is what the practical application of whatever the idea, and that is where engineers should be smart. Fine, there is some theory given to you. So how actually you will make it use of it? I think there is some phrase, when you get lemons, you make a lemonade out of it. So lemon is what physics is or science is. Lemonade is what we engineers do. Lemon sells as 3 pieces 10 rupees. When you make a lemonade, a single cup will sell at around 10 rupees. So that is what the difference is, and that is what the greatness of engineering is. And these are the opportunities. Okay. Anyway, so I don't know how many slides I have. So I think few more slides are there, but I will stop here. Okay, I will stop here, and we will talk about these interesting nanostructures and the policy matters in the next class. So that will complete the large picture, and after that we will start our what you call it as the actual syllabus over here. So any questions, any doubt? Hello, any questions? General questions, mostly.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, in that slide where you told about solar grade silicon and electronic grade silicon, where we needed to make a compromise between the costs and the efficiency. There you said about controlling purity.
There is no efficiency over there, because there is no input output. It's a material only. So what you can say is cost with the defects. Ultimately, that defect is going to affect the efficiency of the device wherever you are going to use it. Okay.
Yes, there you said the controlling impurity means what these two terms refer means. We will remove some specific impurity.
Wait, Kashyap. Yeah. So we have got a dedicated chapter on that, how we purify the silicon. Okay. So I think at that time I will solve it out. Is that fine?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So probably second or third chapter on how we make the purest form of silicon, and how we make this silicon grade, polysilicon, everything we will discuss in that. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other question? No. So shall we end the meeting? But before going away, let me tell you, please tell the other people, okay, those who are too smart and who were absent. I have already marked 5 absent, and I have taken today attendance of dual degree only. Next time I will take the attendance of anybody literally. Okay, it depends on my mood, and you know how moody I am. So thank you very much. Good night. Enjoy. We'll end this meeting now. Thank you. Bye.